What's going on, guys? Romer the Romer here. I'm here with the book flipper. He came in my neck of the woods.
Yes, I did.
This is Caleb Rotz. He's a creator of ScoutIQ. He's also created this awesome spreadsheet. Those are two things you're really known for. And
Those are good things.
Also flips a lot of books. So this guy's awesome. He's got a lot of knowledge, and I got a lot of questions from you guys that I'm gonna ask him. You got anything else to say about yourself?
We're sitting in front of Avery's house, actually. This is beautiful. Check out his crib.
Look at this. This is not my crib, but we are somewhere in Tennessee.
Mysterious, undetermined location.
Do you guys have Yuengling wherever you're from? This is Yuengling beer right here.
I think it's the oldest brewery in America. Yep, America's oldest brewery.
A lot of people
Pennsylvania?
look at this as a luxury. Some states they don't have this.
Funny moment, we were at a restaurant last night. Not very many people were there. We asked the waitress what kind of beers they had on tap. And she starts going through. She's like, Coors Light, Miller Lite, Bud Light, Budweiser, Dos Equis. And then she goes, that's about it. I'm like, do you have any craft beers? She goes, what? I'm like, you know, like craft beers, like a wheat beer or an IPA or something not Budweiser? She's like, I don't think so. So that just makes it clear that I'm a Colorado kid.
Then you asked again, you're like, what do you have on bottles? And she said the same exact.
She went through the same list, and she's just staring at me like, you guys are
and
not from around here.
The wings at this place got more expensive as you ordered more. So like the more you buy, if you bought 50 wings versus 5, they got more and more expensive.
It was more expensive per wing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So.
But I digress.
It's Tennessee math right there. So let's look at these questions here.
All right. So these are unscripted.
Yeah, he doesn't know
and
about
I reserve the right to not answer any of them.
And if he doesn't answer them, I'm just going to ask him again until he does in different ways.
We just have to do push-ups instead.
Okay, this is a question I get a lot, and I think it's a great question for you. We're still going. It's what triggers should you use and why? So I think you could give a really good answer about this because you made the triggers in ScoutIQ.
All right, so this is probably one of the most common questions I get asked as well. So first of all, you maybe don't even need to use triggers. So triggers are great. They help you quickly make decisions if you're brand new to scouting. And we should back up one step as a kid is playing soccer in the front yard, which is awesome. We should see more of that.
Oh, yeah.
Let me back up a step. Triggers are simply a set of rules, and when you scan a book or anything, it'll tell you accept or reject. So should you buy this or should you not? So when you're just starting out, triggers are fantastic. If you don't understand sales rank, if you don't know all the profits, if you don't know what's a good buy or not a good buy, if it turns green, buy the book. That simple as that.
I feel like sometimes, tell me if I'm right about this, but sometimes I feel like triggers are like, hey, look at me. I might be profitable.
There's a lot of ways to set up triggers. Some people like to set up triggers to ding on a lot of things if it's worth looking at. Some people like to just ding on something that's only really, really good.
And your default triggers, though, do ding on, like, really, really high-ranked books, but if they're, like, over $50 profit or something like that, I think those are your last triggers. And that's more of a look at me, this could be something, right?
Yeah, I would usually buy that, with the exception of if it's over 5 or 6 million. I'm really making sure it's somewhat relevant content still.
So what are you doing once it's over 5 or 6 million? Do you look into keeper graphs at all? Or?
I may pull keeper graphs. But bottom line, if you're trying to figure out what triggers you should use, the ones that come with ScoutIQ are pretty much the ones I use in my business. So if you trust me, if you trust the content I put out there, it's a great place to start. Now, some of you may say, hey, I'm okay making 50 cents on a book or $1 on a book. I think the triggers start at $2. I'd have to go back. We just redid the low end of them.
I can't even remember.
I would say if you're going to change the triggers, you should leave the rank and e-score ranges alone. There's a ton of science behind it. We do that for a reason. Books that sell a lot, we're going to be looking at the 3rd or 4th prime price if it's there, and most of the time.
All right, my mom just called and she ruined his point, whatever his point was.
It was a great point.
Do you remember where you were at?
I was pretty much saying the triggers are basically what I use. And there's a lot of science.
That leads to my next question. Do you look at your phone?
I do.
Okay.
I've had times where I'll go audio only. I'll put the phone in my pocket. We do have a lock screen mode that we just rolled out. And so if you do use a Bluetooth scanner, you can put lock screen on, put the phone in your pocket. It won't, the screen's not tappable at that point.
So when would you go audio only versus you're looking at it like intently?
In like a liquidation option or, somewhere where there's just a ton of books and I don't have time to really get through it and
look
at
everything.
everything.
You're doing the audio queue in that case.
Sometimes it's fun, or if you're just scanning all day, sometimes I'll put music on or listen to like a Tim Ferriss podcast. and I'll just use Bluetooth earphones and use my hand, like the Bluetooth scanner. Leave the phone in my pocket. If it bangs, I'm just taking it.
Yeah.
It's not perfect. You're definitely going to miss things, or you'll buy things you maybe shouldn't do it. But when you've already bought all the books and you're just trying to blow through it, sometimes it's good to turn the mind off.
Okay.
But as a general rule, I like looking at the screen. You can make much better decisions. Sometimes it dings, you know, the lowest price is $6, merchant fulfilled, and the buy box is $200. So it's going to ding if you set up to look at the buy box. Now, is it worth $200? Absolutely not.
So what's an example of like a situation where it would say reject, but you would take it?
A lot of times, if the profit might be like $1.98, and I usually want $2. If
See,
the
I've thought
rank's
about
really
that
good,
too.
then
Why
I'll
not?
do it.
Why not just lower it to like 195 as your trigger? Then you know what I mean.
You can. It's not perfect. We could set it to 195, and you buy a few more books.
And then it's like 194 is like the next thing you're looking at it. You're like, oh, I could do that.
And we did this when we started off. My wife and I would go through. We said, well, you want to make $1 minimum, and then you get to 95 cents or 89 cents, and you go, well, it's. You know, the rank is 10,000. eScore didn't exist at this time, but
yeah.
The rank's 10,000. It's going to sell right away. Maybe I can get a little higher than that. Yeah, we'll buy it. And we started buying books down to like 50 cents, 40 cents, because it's going to sell quickly.
Okay.
What happens is the 80-20 rule kicks in, and so 80% of your profits in most businesses come from 20% of your inputs or your books. That's not quite true in books. It's a lot more spread out than that.
It could be 20% of your efforts still though. Because maybe
you got
a majority of your books.
Sources.
Yeah,
sure. But as far as individual books, we looked at it, and I think it was 20% of our books were netting us 3% of our profits, and those were those low-end books. So basically, 1 out of 5 books we were sourcing were only netting us 3% after fees.
That's
after
insane.
Some books didn't sell, and so we looked at it as, well, you know, we could work 4 days a week instead of 5, 80% of the week, and we'd still take home 97% of the profit. And I know it's a hard discussion because you're already at the thrift store. You've already scanned it. Are you going to make $1 and bring it home? Maybe. But what we did is we moved our buying price up. At that point, fees were lower. We changed it from $8 to $10. Came back a couple months later, looked at the data, and again, it was very similar. 20% of the books were yielding 3 or 4% of profits.
Which, I mean, a lot of this has to do with fluctuation. So maybe a book you thought was going to make you $1 profit actually lost you 5 cents. Or maybe it gave you 5 cents. So...
And you also don't sell everything. You list 100 books, you're probably going to sell 75 to 80.
Yeah. So
you're not going to sell everything, and if you're really working with tight margins, it's just extra work. It's the same effort to list a $100 book as it is to list an $8 book. It still takes you the same amount of time to sticker it, put it in a box, and ship it.
Do you have an opinion on when you should download the database? Should you download it the night before the sale?
Always do it the night before, just because you don't want to do it. Like, the database is always going to be a little bit dated just because it's going to be a couple hours old.
Yeah.
We cycle through everything every 24 hours, but because by nature of that, half of it's going to be more than 12 hours old, half of it will be less than 12 hours. What you don't want to do is wake up the morning of, your internet has issues.
I've done that.
And the database doesn't download, and you're sitting there panicking because you waited till the last minute.
Yeah.
Download it the night before, test it, go to sleep happy, and don't worry about it. Most prices aren't going to change. The fluctuations do happen a lot, but a $20 book's not going to drop to an $8 book overnight.
Yeah.
It might drop to 18.
Tell me if this is silly. I like to download it from like 2 weeks ago or even like a month ago. Is that?
Yeah, you mentioned
this. And then what I do is I'll do a live search, and I think this is even more relevant now because Keepa just Keepa you have to pay for now. A lot of people don't want to pay for Keepa. So this
we'll be implementing our own Keepa data into the app soon, so you won't have to pay for it.
You guys have a screenshot of it now? I still see that like when you
yeah,
pull
it's
up.
there. So if you pay for Keepa anyway, it'll actually show up on your device.
But there's something else. There's still that screenshot. I still see the picture.
Right.
Of like the spike.
Do you see the rank in it, or no?
I don't know. Because I pay for Keepa, so I just go straight to Keepa.
There. Yeah, we have a picture. It's basically a rendered PNG image.
Okay. But in a way, isn't having an old database and doing the live search, isn't that kind of like looking at 2 points on a Keepa graph just real quick? Because you're seeing like $8.95 and then $10.95.
Kind of. Honestly, a $10 book is a $10 book. It might jump up to 12, it might drop to 8, but it's typically going to stay roughly 10 for a while. And some people will jump in and drop the price to 4 or 5.
So then that would go with the argument it doesn't matter if you download it the night before or the month before because a $10 book's $10 book, right?
Typically.
It shouldn't matter that much.
It shouldn't. A 50, like, again, triggers are going to find the really expensive stuff. right? So a basic good set of triggers, I'm going to try and use my hands like an Italian. A good set of triggers is going to help separate the studs from the duds, right? The middle area, these books that make you 50 cents to $2 profit, there's a lot of those, and you can build a business off of it. But you might get really good at reading the data and picking slightly better books in that range, and that's fine. eScore is already protecting you because it's letting you know that a book that's ranked 150,000 today that was 6 million yesterday, it's letting you know that it only sold once in the last 6 months.
I think a lot of people now are kind of taking eScore for granted, and I kind of am too because I got into it when eScore kind of became a thing.
Before eScore, we were buying books all the time that were ranked 200,000. And we go home and look at the Keep It chart and go, it sold once in the last 6 months.
Yeah.
Why would we buy it? And that's fine if it's a $50 book. It's still worth taking a risk and trying. But if it's a $10 book and you just bought it thinking you're going to sell it pretty quickly, you're wrong.
And maybe there's some old cats watching this too. Maybe that New York guy's watching this right now, and he swears by sales rank. So if you're watching this, why is eScore so much better than sales rank? And kind of go in a little bit about like how sales rank. I think I heard you in Greg Murphy's interview say that once a book is bought, it drops down to 100K.
Pretty much. So
Always?
rank updates theoretically every hour. Sometimes it waits till the book ships, but rank is updating several times. We don't know exactly. Amazon doesn't share it all, but let's call it every hour. And when a book sells a copy, it drops to roughly 100,000 because there is almost 100,000 unique ISBNs selling every single hour.
Okay.
That's crazy. There's so much volume on Amazon.
100,000.
Roughly 100,000. Okay. It might be 90,000. It might be 120. It depends on the time of day and the time of year. Once it reaches 100,000, if it doesn't sell again, it starts going up and up and up and up. And there's a lot of things that go into rank. This is really oversimplifying it. But if it doesn't sell again after, let's say, 2 weeks, actually after about 5 to 7 days, it gets up to 1 million. And there's a lot of booksellers that say, don't buy books ranked more than 1 million. Well, all that means is it sold 5 or 6 days ago, if it's ranked 1.1 million, for example. If it doesn't sell again, it keeps rising. After about a month, it might be around 2 million. 2 or 3 months, it might get to 3 or 4 million. And so again, those are high numbers. All it means is it hasn't sold a lot.
Mm-hmm.
Where you get into trouble, if you scan a book and it's 3 million, it doesn't really matter how many times it sold in the last 6 months. It just hasn't sold in a couple months, and that's all we care about. So if it's a $10 book, you shouldn't be buying it. If it's a $30 or $40 or $50 book, it might be worth rolling the dice because it's likely to sell again.
And these are almost like ScoutIQ's triggers talking to you right now because he's the one that made them. So like once you get up to those higher ranked books, ScoutIQ would tell you, hey, look, this might be profitable because what is it? It gets up to like 30 at one point, $30 like after 3 million. So
yeah, as a general rule, we everything there is based on profit, but as a general rule, once you're north of about 2 to 3 million, you really want to see roughly $10 per million. So a 3 million book should be selling for about $30
but
to
eScore is
justify
the
it.
first and foremost thing ScoutIQ considers, right?
Yep.
That overrides rank, but if that's not available, then it'll default to.
So some books might be 3 million with 0 eScore. It's a textbook that's sold in the past, and its rank is 3 million. It hasn't sold in the last 6 months.
Stay away from high ranked textbooks. It's just not going to get better.
Versus a book that's 3 million and it's sold 6 times
like
in the last 6 months.
Like an art book or like a Jewish book or something like that.
So that's where eScore is going to protect you. We were going somewhere with that. But basically where eScore protects you is a book that was 6 or 7 million, it hasn't sold in 6 months, and it just sold a copy. So if you were to scan a $20 book that's ranked 6 million yesterday and it was still ranked 6 million, your triggers would say buy it or don't buy it. Your eyeballs would say don't buy it. You'd probably leave it there. If you were to scan it the next day, it's going to make a great little screenshot image for you, a little thumbnail.
That's a thumbnail right
That's it. If you were going to scan it the next day after it just happened to sell 1 copy in the last 6 months and it sold yesterday, you would scan it today, it's a $20 book and it's 150,000 rank. Yeah. So your triggers are still going to say no, it's an eScore of 1, and you shouldn't be buying the book if it's only $15 or $20, unless you really want to take roll the dice. Mm-hmm. So eScore protects you there because instead of going, oh my gosh, it's a 150,000 ranked book that's selling for $15, I need to buy it. The eScore kind of says, hold on, it's not selling all that often, be careful.
Yeah.
So again, triggers, they're not hard and fast. If you don't know what you're doing, or if you're brand new and don't want to take the time to learn it, or you're in a hurry, triggers are awesome. You can just mow through it, use the audio cues. Please use earphones. Don't just be loud and obnoxious at a sale. But it's really great for just getting through quickly. As you get better and more experienced, I love looking at it. So I always have my phone and a barcode scanner on the back. I don't use the crazy big Nadamoo that Avery loves.
The
So I don't want to use
awesome.
I don't want to use a garage.
You have that
yeah,
right
I
now.
busted it out. I don't want to use a garage door.
Elliot stole that for you.
Elliot was
His
eating
son stole that.
I don't want to use a garage door opener, although you could.
Oh wow.
Durable too.
Yeah.
Uh-oh, it fell down the crack. No, I got it.
Easy to hold on to, isn't it?
As it just fell down the crack.
I'll find it later. Don't worry about it.
It's like
The
behind this
Nadamoo,
house.
guys. You gotta get this scanner.
It's still alive. It's still alive. Okay, so I use an Opticon. It's much smaller, and I connect it to the back of my phone. I'm talking fast because now I'm nervous. Dropped it on camera. But I use one hand, and then I can scan with one hand and look at the data. And again, I'm just kind of busting through it. If it turns green, if it says, hey, it's worth looking at, then take an eyeball, look at it and go, you know what? It's saying avoid it, but actually I want it because it's close enough to my profit level.
Yeah. It's funny you say that. It's making me want to start looking at the ScoutIQ as I'm scanning, because I've always been like just audio queue, and just scan as many as I can.
Well, today, for example, I was picking up a lot of books that we can sell for $1.98.
Yeah,
$1.50.
I was doing that.
They're going to sell quickly. The triggers say no because you need $2.
Yeah.
But we already bought all the books.
Yeah.
And so if we can just go in and pull $1.80 almost guaranteed, we should.
Mm-hmm.
Now it's a slippery slope. We probably shouldn't be pulling stuff for 75 cents. But you got, that's where looking at it helps you out a little bit.
Yeah, definitely. There's one more question, kind of revolving around like algorithmic thinking, I guess, and or things, and it's
Logic?
It's more yeah. Is that the word for it?
Algorithm is just it's fancy,
smart stuff.
Yeah.
And it kind of it's about repricing, but like, and I have this question too. Someone on Instagram asked this: is why are there still people out there, particularly FBA guys, who are like so low priced on listings where they don't need to be? Is that just repricers going haywire? Like what's happening there? Are people actually making profits off of this? And also, could you address like, because I'm really curious about why are there so many people, like there's a lot of people just selling cheap merchant fulfilled books, and are those people still just, do they have like massive discounted rates, or like what is it?
Yeah, so merchant fulfilled is a little different. We'll take that question first.
Okay.
Merchant fulfilled, you can get really good rates if your volume goes up. You can get pre-sorted mail. I think DHL, some of these post companies, you can get crazy discounted rates. Like I think we're talking like $1.50 or cheaper. Don't quote me on that. But I've talked to some bulk sellers that get it down there. So you'll see kind of the floor price right now is mid fives, $5.50, $5.60, $5.70. Amazon's fees are the same for everybody. No one's getting discounted rates from Amazon. So a book that sells, let's do easy math. A book that sells for $6, merchant fulfilled, Amazon's taking $1.80 plus 15% of $6, which is 90 cents. So they're taking $2.70, roughly half the sale. You've got $3.30 left to play with, assuming you pick the book up, let's call it free, and you have no labor, right? No overhead, anything. You got robots that do it and no shelf space. But you basically spent $3 on fees, and now you've got $3 in shipping. So if you can get your shipping down and it's a book that weighs half a pound or something, you might be able to pay $1.50 in shipping and still net $1.50 to $1.80. So it's not bad. You could theoretically see a floor price lower than that. Again, I don't know exactly what the discounted rates are. So some people play the game and they're actually going to blow out inventory to try and increase their volume, because if they can crack a certain threshold, let's say 1,000 orders a month or 10,000 orders a month, they'll actually qualify for better rates for everything. So sometimes they may sell a book and lose a little money or basically break even just to get better rates everywhere.
Yeah, and better rates from like not from Amazon, just
Parcel
from
Post,
other shipping companies.
Yeah, United States Post Office, that kind of thing. So that's merchant fulfilled. FBA is pretty much a level playing ground. The only differences you can get are how much you're paying for your books and how fast you can prep them and send them in.
Yeah.
So people think, well, big sellers like Jensen or Goodwill, they must get better rates than us small sellers. Not true. Maybe short time periods of time there's incentives, but as a general rule, it's the same. It's level. So Avery's paying the same fees I am. So on a $10 FBA book, your fees are roughly the same as we just talked about, $1.80 plus 15%. So it's going to be $1.50 plus $1.80. You're going to spend $3.30 in Amazon fees. Plus you had to ship that book into Amazon, but let's ignore that because it's sunk cost, right? It's too late.
Yeah.
We already shipped it. We already spent the money. So we got $3.30 in fees, and then Amazon's going to charge a final or an FBA fee based on the weight of the book. If it's under 0.75 pounds, so 3/4 of a pound, it's going to be cheap. It depends on dimensions a little bit as well, but typically it's going to be, I think, $2.41. So you can still make money on a $10 book. It's $330 plus $240. Check my math. You can do this in the background on the screen, but $570, $330 and $240. Yeah, so $570. You've got about $430 of profit left, $4 on a $10 book. The problem is when that turns into a 1 pound book or just over 3/4 of a pound, or the dimensions are bigger. Now it's like $475 for the fee. So you got $475 plus $330. We're doing too much math. You got about $2 of profit left over. So why do we see books that are, you know, FBA books that are $750 or $780 in those cases when the fees are that high?
Or even like $4.
Sometimes you'll see it. It's either a repricing error. The other thing is people go, well, they must have cheaper fees. They don't. Keep in mind it costs 15 cents to dispose of a book, 15 cents. So if, let's say you could sell a book at a 14-cent loss, it's still cheaper to do that than it is to pay the 15 cents and dispose of it. So you might see that. That's like next level thinking, but some people do that.
Yeah.
I think it's either bad repricing rules, in which case you could buy those cheap offers and try and resell them yourself, or they're just got different parameters. But it's not necessarily a rational market, although the buyers will buy those up if it gets too cheap. Sometimes I've seen FBA offers for a penny with free shipping. That never makes sense. Nobody's making money on that.
Yeah.
It's a repricer that screwed up.
Yeah, I've seen
but
books.
Those are out there. We'll post a link. Probably they'll be gone soon, but we can probably go find some right now with Eflip.
Yeah, for sure.
Go find some books that are less than $1.
Sometimes I'm in like the store, and it might be a store that actually like purchases your books back. And the book in the store will be like $30, but it'll be like 75 cents prime. And I'd be like, I could buy this prime, get it in 2 days, take it to the store. They'll probably give me $10 for it. You know, if they really think they can sell it for 30, which past data, if they price it at 30, they probably have past data that shows that it's sold at 30. So I'm like, I could bring it in
you're
there.
Reverse arbitraging. Instead of buying in the stores and selling on Amazon, you're buying on Amazon.
Yeah. Just in case I get banned from Amazon, I gotta have another hustle.
There you go.
Let me look at a couple more questions.
Speaking of hustle, this guy hustles. We're sitting there scanning books, and he's like talking to Siri, and I think Siri is a virtual assistant with how much he talks to her. But he's got people shipping in books and printing labels and sending letters. He's got a little army at his disposal.
So we're gonna kind of take a step back from like really microscopically looking at data to just more general questions. This is a question I have actually, so I'm gonna ask it first because this is the one that really interests me. What do you think a comfortable number is for a sales goal for someone who's all books?
Full-time? Part-time?
Full-time.
Where do they live? How much
South.
money do they need to make?
They live in the South. They want to...
Rents what?
I don't even know. Let's say
$1,000 with utilities, with
everything.
Let's say
12,000. Let's say 12,000.
Let's go monthly.
1,200.
Let's go monthly.
1,200. Let's say they have a small family. And I'm terrible because I'm so young. I'm really bad with like numbers like that. Like I just don't even
what
understand.
Does food cost?
I'm paying $12.50 a month for my apartment, and that's the only thing I've ever paid.
Expenses, entertainment.
Yeah.
So maybe your monthly living number to be.
And you have 2 kids. You have 2 kids, and you have a wife that makes what's an average salary? I don't even know that. What's an average salary? Like 40,000.
Median in the U.S. Yeah, between 30 and 50. Somewhere probably.
So
in the 40
your wife makes
ballpark.
Your wife. Let's say your wife works part-time and she makes like what, like 25,000 a year.
Okay. And
you want to support your family. What's like a reasonable sales goal? I think it's going to be a lot higher than a lot of people on here think. That's why I'm asking this question. Like, what do you think? And let's say like an average sales price, which is ASP of like you're shooting for like 20
bucks.
20 bucks. Yeah.
Okay. Good question. I mean, we could get into budgeting and how to control your expenses.
The super ballparky, like it could be 100,000 give or take.
Let's just say you're looking to make, I don't know. Let's say you were looking to bring home, if your wife's making 25 grand a year, so let's call it 2 grand a month. Let's say your family need is about 5 grand to cover insurance, retirement, everything. Let's say you want to live on 60 grand a year, which is a good number. Most of the country, not in California, but most of the country, 60 is a good number. So let's say you need to bring in 3 grand a month with your book business.
All the people from California are like disliking this video.
I know. And Colorado, it's getting expensive in a lot of cities. But let's say you want to bring in 3 grand after fees. So let's ignore taxes. Let's just say 3 grand off of Amazon. In order to do a month.
Okay.
So again, people share numbers all the time. They share their, like Avery posted his sales numbers the other day. Sales are not profits. And just because you have a
That's all profit, baby.
Just
When
because you have a
saw that.
6-figure Amazon business, I've seen people with 7-figure Amazon businesses that are in the red, meaning they're not profitable. So just because there's a big top number doesn't mean anything. So let's say you want to do $3,000 after fees on Amazon, and if you're doing $20 books, that pretty much turns into about $10 to $12 payout. So let's call it 60% payout. So you need to sell $5,000 on Amazon, assuming no cost of goods. So you need to sell $5,000 worth of books minus Amazon fees. Well, Amazon will then pay you $3,000. Well, then what did you spend on inventory? You said $20 ASP?
Yep.
Tracking my math. You need to sell 250 books a month. What's your average buy cost? $2?
Yeah.
Thrift stores here and there.
Fair. Yeah.
Let's say 2. So you've got $500 in buy cost a month once you've reached equilibrium, once your inventory is selling. And you got some mileage and some other expenses and some supplies, inbound shipping. And you probably actually need to sell around $6,000 a month to net about $3,000 pre-tax. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So that's kind of a good number to shoot for. If your ASP, if your sale price is higher, let's say you have a lot of textbooks and your sale price is 50 or 60, that changes the equation slightly. But for most of you, a good rule of thumb is 50 to 60% of your sales will end up as a payout or cash in your bank account. So $6,000 a month, you'd have to sell $72,000 a year to basically net around $50,000. Sorry. Did we do that math right?
I mean, it'd be exactly
No, you
half,
want to net
right?
36.
Yeah.
Yeah, you net 36. Yep. So you'd have to sell 72 to net 36.
See, I think you should shoot for like triple that though.
Well, it depends
because things are going to go up and down. It's not like a job. A job, you get a paycheck every week. With entrepreneurship,
that's a good
you have
point.
your ups and you have your downs. You might have like a really bad month where you don't make much, and you want to have a piggy bank where you've set aside, from maybe January where you did, a huge month. Maybe you did like, I think I heard you say this before. You do, or maybe Reezy said this. You do like the majority of your. I think all booksellers do the majority of their sales during
January
textbook season.
and August and September. Yeah,
there was some number out there. They're like 50% or something like that. Like 50% of revenue and sales occur during those months. So
it's not quite that high, but it's up there. We typically sell 15 to 20% of our inventory every month as a turn rate, and during textbook season we sell about 50 or a little more. And we're textbook heavy. So you take a typical month, if you have, let's say you have $100,000 in inventory, and normally you sell 15 to 20%, you're gonna have $15,000 to $20,000 months. If you have a 40 or 50% sell-through rate of your textbooks during textbook season, you're gonna have a $40,000 or $50,000 month.
Yeah.
So yeah, it does help. It'd probably be a quarter of your business in 2 months, 30% of your business in 2 months.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think all booksellers should have big textbook seasons, at least bigger.
Bulk sellers don't really.
They don't?
No, because they're not really geared toward that. Like if you look at some of the guys we've met at these conferences, they get a little bump, a rising rising tide carries all ships or lifts all ships. Who rides boat? You drive drive a boat. You paddle a canoe. You used to be on his car over here.
I brought the rack just in case I needed it on this little sourcing trip. In case something crazy happened with the book flipper, I had the rack on my car.
There it is.
So I took the canoe off. I was ready to go.
But yeah, you should obviously figure out what you need and then work backwards from that and figure out you need to be sourcing, in that case, 250 to 300 books a month, and you have to have an inventory big enough to support that. But yeah, always try and cut your expenses even more, because if you have a down month, then you're good.
Yeah.
Where we get into trouble, what up?
What up, Fritz? It's my
up?
boy Fritz.
Well,
He's been hustling books. This kid hustled a ton of books from.
Tired?
Kind of tired, but I'm good.
Fritz hustled a ton of books from college. He's a college student, and he got textbooks. He hustled about $900. He spent $900 on textbooks. It's gonna be a pretty good pay. I'm paying him 30% of that. He doesn't know anything about selling on Amazon. He's just helping me out. He's a hustler though. So yeah, we're gonna take a step back and get more into just like general questions about reselling. So a lot of people want to know where to get books besides library sales and thrift stores. So what do you have on that?
We talked about this at a couple of the conferences, but I tell people go upstream. So if you just source from libraries and thrifts, if you can make a run of that, keep going, that's awesome. But that's gonna be the lowest hanging fruit. So anybody with a smartphone and a couple $100 to get started, can be your competition. You know, someone that doesn't really know what they're doing and just watching the triggers and it says buy can be your competition. So if that's your only sourcing and it works, good for you. That's awesome. Keep doing it, but start getting creative. Leverage your neighborhood. Leverage your neighbors. Figure out ways to connect. Work with schools. Try and get backroom access. Avery talks about this quite a bit. But go upstream. If you're just waiting for the books to hit the shelves and then be put on the shelves and maybe you're competing with other scanners, it's not really a business. It's a job and it's a good hustle. But find ways to go upstream. Talk to the manager. See if you can get backroom access. Ask what do they do with the books that don't go on the shelves. Try and figure out where the donations are coming from, and you be the one that gets the donations. Put a bin up. Talk to neighbors. Put Craigslist ads out to go pick up books. Find a way to go upstream. Library. Talk to the friends of the library. What are they doing? Do they have experience? Can you help sell for them? Can you buy the books before they go to the sale? What can you do to go upstream? Give yourself an unfair advantage, leverage your connections, build relationships, and go that route. Also start thinking outside the box. Where are books? Publishers have books, schools have books, colleges have books. It's not just thrift stores and libraries, right? So figure out where the books are. Homeschoolers have books. Everybody in their house has books. How do you unlock the power of that? It's a little weird knocking on their door asking to scan their library collection. But find ways to not just be doing libraries and thrift stores. Give yourself an unfair advantage.
Yeah. You guys should rewatch that 10 times. There's a ton of good. I got to rewatch that.
And there's a lot. If you have a closed mindset thinking that's it, and there, you know, as soon as 10 other people in your town get access to the same thrift store, you're hosed. You're not thinking big. There are big sources out there, some of which we're just discovering ourselves. And the opportunities are pretty good.
Yeah.
Again, if you live in a big market, Denver, Chicago, East Coast especially, you can make money driving up and down, hitting thrift stores. Nothing wrong with that. I love garage sales because it leads to relationships and it's just fun. Yeah. So I like to walk up and down and chit chat with the neighbors and other people and just start asking questions. Buy their books. They'll ask what you're doing with them. Be honest. And it might lead to more conversations.
Yeah, which you mentioning that, like talking to people and leading to like networking and getting more sources from that in a way that's kind of scalable. What are some things that resellers can do that are scalable in their business? It's not just a grind to where when the next year comes everything's done. What are some things they can do to where it comes back to them the next year? Everything that they sowed in 2018 is going to come back in or it's 2019 now. So
yeah, into 2020. Build relationships.
Okay, so like what does that look like?
And you've been doing it somewhat too. I don't know how open you are about this, but
I'm open about
consignment deals.
Everything. Yeah.
So you've got people hustling for you, sending you books that either they're restricted on, or they're having trouble.
100%. Why wouldn't I be open about that? Drop below if you guys are restricted in books. I'll sell them for you.
Right. So that's something that you build on.
Yeah.
Right. You also find like book scouts or even libraries like on consignment, or thrift stores or anything. Friends of the library, for example. Set up relationships where you are either helping them, either you go in and trade your time for money, or set them up. That's why we built like ScoutIQ hidden mode. You can literally set up a team member remotely, never touch their phone. Give them a login. You can hire someone. You can be living in Tennessee like Avery, and you can hire someone in California to scan books for you.
Yeah, it's pretty awesome. And if it turns green, put it in one stack. If it turns red, put it in the other.
Totally, and that's where triggers come into play because you get to set the rules for them.
Exactly. Yeah.
Now those books are showing up at your front porch. You didn't scan them. You didn't trade your time to do it. Now if you go one step further and hire someone to list, you've pretty much removed yourself from the equation.
And I've thought about this a good amount too, in just consignments in general. And something that consignments do is you're kind of taking someone's money for a while. You're taking something that's worth money and you're holding on to it for a while. And when you take someone's money, they think about you a lot. They're thinking, are they gonna pay me? And if you're an honest person, like the book flipper here, or me, especially him, because he developed the tracking spreadsheet, so like
that's how we track
the
and pay
payouts
people.
Are just like there's no arguing against it. He knows every single fee that happened each month. He just runs the scripts. There's also a link for that below. Like consignments wouldn't be. I could not do consignments without that. I mean, that's probably why you developed that spreadsheet.
That's a big one. We wanted to know what ranks sell back before there was much research on it, and then we wanted to be able to track. And honestly, we do more in consignment for other people than we do finding our own books.
And I think, I don't know if you've thought about this or not, because I don't think I've talked to you about this, but I think consignments are so great because people think about you a long time, because you're basically holding on to something of value for them. And then when you do pay them, it's like, oh, he's for real. He's for real about this. Like, he wasn't just, you know, bullshitting. He actually took something, especially when the consignment goes really well, where they get you lots of books and you pay them thousands of dollars. It's like, okay, I'm gonna start talking about this person because they thought about you for several months. Like, oh, is he gonna pay me? Is he gonna pay me? And then it happened, and then they realized you're real. Versus, because the alternative is you would have paid them a much lower amount up front.
And it's transactional. It's not relational.
Yeah, and then it would have been over with, and maybe
Yep.
they would have thought about you. I mean, there's a high chance they would have, but because they thought about you for several months and they weren't really sure, but then when you paid them, they were like, okay, this is for real. I think that's a huge point.
It's a good point, yeah. And we pay every month. And so if someone gives us a ton of books, we pay them the next month and the month after that. And they keep selling for 3 to 6 to 8 to 12 months, depending on what's in there. And so it's a chance. Sales is all about getting top of mind, getting in front of them and saying, hey, I'm still here, remember me. And when you write them a check, that's a really good way to say, hey, here's a couple $100, here's $1,000, whatever the agreement was. Here's your money. And even if you don't even ask for it, they're already thinking about you in positive light, and they're thinking, how do I find more books?
Exactly. Top 3 tips for resellers. This is the last question. What top 3 tips do you have, just in general, I guess, for anyone, any reseller?
Know your numbers. Know what goes into a sale. Can you sell a book for $3 and make money, $8, $12? Know your numbers, even just some basic ones. Build systems. You're really good at this. Instead of just like, hey, I'm going to do this one job one time, write it down, outsource it to a VA if you can, or just have it written down so you don't have to repeat your thinking again. So know your numbers, set up your systems, and improve, like just go find more books, improve your sourcing and your sources. If you do those, the rest takes care of itself. Like, Amazon's beautiful. We throw books into it and magic happens and money comes out. It takes time and you got to be decently knowledgeable about it. But it works, and you can fine-tune that model. But honestly, once you have it down and you got your systems and you know what your goals are, for us, we have weekly goals we try and hit. As long as you can do that, you can keep growing the business.
Yeah. Awesome. The Book Flipper guys.
And drink good beer and good coffee. Those are 2 bonus tips.
100%. Yuengling, y'all. Is that good compared to Denver beer? That's probably better than Denver beer, right?
It's like, this is classic Midwest beer. I remember when you couldn't get it in Indiana. My brother-in-law and I had a trade. I would bring him, I think, Fat Tire. They couldn't get it in Ohio, and he would trade me for Yuengling because we couldn't get it in Indiana.
That's funny. And you probably wanted it more because you couldn't get it.
Totally.
Like, the grass
and now that I can
green.
drink it, it's like,
it's
it's decent beer.
You guys can find him at The Book Flipper. TheBookFlipper.com's awesome. Just type in The Book Flipper anywhere on any platform except Snapchat. He hasn't gone there yet.
I am on Snapchat, but no one talks to me. I don't really understand.
Is it The Book Flipper?
Probably. It might be Caleb Rothschild.
Okay.
I don't know.
That's funny.
I think it's The Book Flipper. Come find me on Snapchat, and I'll probably reply.
Add him on Snapchat.
I'll probably reply 2 months later.
The Book Flipper Facebook group's an awesome place to go and ask questions. There's lots of smart people on there that'll answer your questions. On Instagram, he'll post like once a month, so that's pretty cool too. Most of the time, it's his cute little baby Elliot. And then on YouTube, there's tons of good content. If you guys, after this video, if you guys want to go watch something like really good, go watch his pricing videos. There's just lots of little nuggets in there about how to really price, and you'll learn so much more about reselling just from watching that video. I always recommend that video to people. There's a few of them, but it's got like a pink graph in the background. But go watch that. This guy, he's got so much knowledge, and like, he's basically taught me everything. So I want to thank you for that.
I'll send you an invoice. No, it's been a privilege. This is a crazy business, and I love that the community is just connected and helps each other. I've learned from so many other people. I've picked up a bunch of social media tips from you, and just connect, meet other people. Don't be scared to connect and share what you're doing. You're gonna pick up something, and it's gonna benefit everybody. So it's pretty cool to meet people in person.
Awesome, guys.
Well, the sun is completely set.
Yeah.
So
it's gonna be cool watching that video.
We're gonna wind it down, and thanks for watching.
Cheers. Peace out.